and welcome back to Lesson Design. The name of this phase is Process and Reflect. So my question for you is, how specific is your feedback to individual students or to the whole class? How often do your students get to practice thinking about their work? This phase is also a new phase for the learning process to reflect on the work that has been done so far. Reflections on their own learning enable students to develop strategies and are an important part of lifelong learning. Here are tips on how you can create activities that promote the students' ability to reflect and that raise the students' thoughts in the whole class so that everyone can take part in them and the common reflections. The aim is to see what the students can do and what misunderstandings may still exist. The aim is also to use the students as resources for each other so that they once again have the opportunity to learn by listening to each other's understanding of the work and the area of knowledge. Okay, number one, this is what you can do in the classroom. In Swedish we call it EPA. EPA stands for single, pair, all, and this is of course in Swedish. This means that you tell the students to think first by themselves, individually, then think together with someone in pairs, and then think aloud together with others. It's everyone's chance to take time to think and then try out their thoughts together in smaller contexts before it's time for thoughts in the whole class. It is therefore a good way to completely differentiate classifications in terms of tempo and level. Number two is name pins. Write them all down quickly on sticks that are kept on the table or in a box or a bag. When it's time to raise thoughts about the new work or new unit you're working with, you draw a name and then the students get to tell and talk. If you make this a routine, students will get used to do it. And differentiate to lower the active filter by dragging two names at once so they can help each other. Number three is prepare to raise thoughts. Differentiate the pace by saying that you will soon ask a question. For example, could it sound like this? In a couple of minutes, I will ask Kalle about the difference between the Riksdag and the government. But first, I want to hear from someone else. How is it that we have 349 mandates to the Riksdag? I'm going to talk about response. This chapter is about peer response or kamratresponse to the work process. It can be helpful to remind students of all ages that learning is not straightforward. The left arrow represents representation-oriented work, while the right arrow represents the process and its more realistic symbol of learning. Try to put students in pairs or small groups and ask them to show each other what they are in the crooked file right now in the work. Make it explicit by showing on the board where you think you are and explain why you think so. Differentiate by letting some groups reason on their own while other students do the exercise with you. Here is a short summary of this phase, which is about processing and reflecting. So, students should be able to try to reflect and share their thoughts in different ways. Give the students the opportunity to answer questions in several ways,
by hearing how their classmates reflect and by giving feedback specifically to different students. Reflecting is not the easiest thing, and we all recognize students who are not used to think about their learning. Many times the students are asked to reflect freely with open-ended questions. Exclusive models and question types provide more guidance to get further in the student's reflection.
Be prepared. Soon you will be discussing a story from a classroom. One student had worked on their maths problem. They were given the chance to show them to the class. The teacher asked a few groups to show the numbers, how they had calculated and solved the task. The teacher knew that the groups would solve it in different ways and wanted to show the class that it was possible to work in different ways and still come to the same result. One group told how they had arrived at the answer and showed on the screen or the whiteboard how they had done it. At the same time, the teacher always showed the solution on the whiteboard. When 3 groups had shown their answers and their solutions on the whiteboard, it was now time for reflection and differentiate their work in different ways. Now the students also had to look at the teacher's notes on the board and think about which solution they thought was most effective. Then they had to tell their classmates what they thought about these different solutions. The teacher then asked different pairs to tell how they thought about the different solutions and how effective and safe they were. My question for you is, how is this task differentiated in terms of method, level, and pace? I also wonder how the teacher showed what the purpose of the task was. And my third question is, was there something in the task that made the group take part in group learning?